Hello and welcome into my latest live stream. My name is Kerry Holzman. Today is Sunday, October 28th, 2018. And today we're going to get a little bit nerdy, but we're going to show you how nerdy can be so stupid sometimes. For those of you who aren't nerdy, stick with us so you can understand the absolute stupidity and the depths of nerdidity. Is that a word? Nerdidity? I'm calling it a word. So we're going to get into this here in just a moment. Let me just say a quick hello to everybody joining in the chat. I was going to pre-record this and I said, you know what? Let's just do it live. Let's do it live. To heck with everything else. Today is a very valuable lesson to be learned. And we're going to talk about reasons why overclocking is stupid and doesn't really pertain to computers built since 2015. The performance increases are strictly benchmark numbers. They don't really something a human being notices. We're going to get into why. And we're going to talk about NVMe drives in RAID 0. Now, some of you may not understand that language. I've already explained NVMe in a previous video, and I will put a link to that video down below the notes in this video a little bit later on. I haven't done that yet. And RAID is a redundant array of independent disks. Some people will say that RAID means redundant array of inexpensive disks. But what's expensive or inexpensive is subjective. What you think is expensive, I might think is inexpensive, or the other way around. But we can all agree the drives are independent. And for that reason, it's only logical that RAID stands for, today, redundant array of independent disks. So what does that mean? It means you can take numerous disks or drives, independent drives, not disks, independent drives. Even I can't get the acronyms right. The drives are what hold your data. They're your storage. It's your closet for your computer. And the idea is, since hard drives are so slow, that if we can take two hard drives and have each one do half the work, we can get double the speed. So if each hard drive holds half, let's say you've got a bunch of data, and half of your Word documents on hard drive 1 and the other half of your Word documents on hard drive 2, the data without the other drive is completely gobbledygook nonsense to a computer. So if either drive fails in what we're calling a RAID 0, if either drive fails, everything's gone. But the benefit for that risk is that now the drives are reading and writing half as much data at the same time. So you're getting twice the reads and twice the write speeds. That's the theory behind it. It doesn't quite work out to twice because there's some mathematical parity checking and things like that takes place. But be that as it may, RAID is just taking multiple storage devices and tying them together to appear as one. So you can take a 1 terabyte hard drive and another 1 terabyte hard drive, and when you put them in RAID, the computer sees it as one 2 terabyte hard drive. But if either of those two drives fails, the entire data set is lost. So backups are critical. Now, there's other types of RAID arrays, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 10. We won't get into any of that today because this is not a lesson on RAID. This is a lesson on stupidity. So hopefully you'll be able to follow along with it. Okay, so here's the deal. What we've got here is a very modern Gigabyte Aorus Z370 Gaming 7 motherboard with the latest Intel 8086K consumer processor. It has 3 sockets here for M.2 drives. And they can be run in SATA mode or in NVMe mode, or non-volatile memory express mode. The SATA interface is like a freeway. All of the interfaces on a computer are like a freeway or a motorway. There's a speed limit and a certain number of lanes that the cars can go into. And once you've hit the maximum speed the car can go, you can't go any faster than that. And that's what's happened with SATA, S-A-T-A based M2 drives, or regular SATA based hard drives or solid state drives. They've maxed out as fast as they can go. That's as far as it can go. You're looking at around 560 megabytes a second is what you'll typically see. Maximum, that's it. That's as far as it goes. There's no going beyond that. There's no overclocking you can do. There's nothing you can do to your CPU to make it any faster, right? If your car only goes so fast, it can only go as fast as the car in front of it. You understand? So even if your car can do 200 miles an hour, when you get on the freeway and all the lanes on the freeway are jam-packed with cars, you cannot go any faster than the car in front of you. So I don't care how much you want to overclock your car. It's not going any faster when it's in traffic. Okay, so let's go back to this. So what we've got here, although it says Optane, there's no Optane in there. We've taken that out. Optane's just it's a slow cache compared to an SSD. It's a poor man's SSD. There's a lot of hype about Optane. Don't buy into it unless you're like, I don't know, not good with money or math, in which case, go buy yourself an Optane. In the meantime, we've got a regular Samsung 970 EVO. We've got two of them. They're 1 terabyte each. And I'm going to show you how to configure RAID 0 on this motherboard. And it's not simple and it's not logical. So that's why I feel like a video needs to be made about it. And then once I teach you how to do that, I'm going to show you why you would never ever want to do that. And it's a very, very stupid, obsolete feature that came with this board. And I'll explain why. Stick with me. Here we go. Let me first start by, I'm going to switch my video input over to this computer here, which currently is off. Let's give it some power. And we'll turn this on, and then let's switch the video input over so you can see what I'm seeing here. This thing is dead silent, by the way. Great configuration here. Now we're going to hit, whoops, I missed my opportunity. We have to hit delete to get into the BIOS. Oh, never mind. It's got no bootable device. These are two brand new Samsung 970 NVMe drives. They're not configured. There's no partition. There's no data. The computer has nowhere to go. There's no storage device to boot to because they haven't been configured yet. So in this case, it defaults us right into the BIOS, which is where I wanted to go. Once we're in the BIOS, we need to go to right up at the top here. It says BIOS. Do you see? Where's my mouse? You see where my mouse is right here? You see how it says BIOS? So you go into your BIOS and you go into the BIOS setting in your BIOS. You got that? You got to go to the BIOS setting in the BIOS. Okay. Scroll down here. See how I'm scrolling down? You see? Look, I'm going to just keep doing it. See how it keeps going down, down, down. All right. Follow it. Follow it. There. Right there. You see where it says CSM support? We have got to turn that off if we're going to enable NVMe RAID. And then for that to take effect, we have to go to save and exit. So we're going to just grab the mouse. We're going to go to save and exit. And save and exit. And yes. Okay. Now with that setting saved, we're going to go back into the BIOS. I think it'll just go right back in there on its own in a minute. And then we're going to proceed with making more changes. Now, SATA and NVMe are two entirely different and unrelated things, and therefore any settings for NVMe should be kept in its own section of the BIOS, which is what Gigabyte did halfway. If we go over here to peripherals, you'll see at the very bottom, if I scroll down, all the way down, it says NVMe configuration. So you'd think, well, that's where you got to go to configure your RAID. Well, you'd be right. If you were a logical engineer designing the software, that's where you would have put it. But that's not what Gigabyte decided to do. If we go in here, you'll see this is just, you see what it says right here? Drive information. There's nothing here for you to change. It's completely useless. I don't know what they're thinking over at Gigabyte, but man, whoever is selling them, whatever they're on, I'd like to buy some. So anyway, this verifies what we have installed, which is the Samsung SSD 970 EVO 1 terabyte. And if you look, it shows one is on bus 1 and one is on bus 8. And you know what that information tells us? Absolutely nothing. So we're going to go back. I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard. And we're going to go up to where we shouldn't need to be, which is in the SATA and RST configuration. RST is Intel's rapid storage technology. Anyway, so we're going to hit that. And under SATA mode selection, we're going to choose Intel RST with Optane. Even though we're not using Optane, again, the engineers who designed this aren't really the smartest in the bunch, apparently, from what I'm seeing. We're not done yet. We still have 2 more changes. You think you just hit one button to turn NVMe RAID on and off. No, no. Gigabyte couldn't have possibly made it that easy. So we're going to go down here to PCI storage device on port 9. You remember what bus it said it was on? Bus 1 and bus 8? Well, apparently it's on port 9, and as you can see below it, port 17. So again, there's no consistency within the BIOS. There's no consistency with what the engineers are deciding how they're going to relay the information to the consumer. And too bad, so sad. But it doesn't matter because this is one of the worst things you could possibly do. But we're going to show you how to do it, and then we're going to tell you why you shouldn't. So we want to tell each one of these to control it by the Intel Rapid Storage Technology driver by selecting it. See what I'm doing here? So, whoops, I hit a wrong button there. Sorry about that. I probably should use my mouse so you can watch the pointer. Back to peripherals, back to SATA and RST config. Make sure that both of the PCIe storage are on RST controlled, right? Now we're ready. Now we're ready. So I'm going to save and exit and save and exit. Are you sure? Yes. Now what's going to happen is the machine is going to see those two 1 terabyte drives as a single 2 terabyte drive. Pretty cool, right? And if a single NVMe drive can do 3,500 megabytes per second on sequential reads, then two of them should be able to do 7,000, somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 megabytes per second. There's a lot of confusion about megabytes and megabits. A byte is a capital B. If you ever see a capital B, an M and a capital B, that's bytes. If you want to know megabits, multiply times 8. So we don't want to give out these gross tests, these huge numbers. So we're going to use megabytes. Typically, when we talk about storage, we talk megabytes. When we talk about speed with reference to like how fast your internet service is, we measure that in bits. You could divide that by 8. You could divide the number of bits by 8 and get megabytes, or you can multiply megabytes by 8 to get bits. It's the same number, just depends on which math you want to use. So I get sick and tired of these idiots in the internet trying to correct me because they don't understand the difference between bits and bytes and how they're related. So I'm providing this information in an attempt to quash. Now that I said it, people are going to do it on purpose. I know how you guys are. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's configured the RAID. Now, I'm going to go ahead and shut this machine off. And it says no signal because the video card's not getting a signal. Here I've got Windows 10 on a USB drive. So I'm going to plug that in. Now, on some systems, you need a special driver for the Windows installation to see the RAID array. But with Windows 1809, with this motherboard, with the Intel RST set up, it will automatically see it. No special drivers are needed. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on and test this theory out. So I just powered it up. We'll see it come on here in just a second. All right. Should boot. It's only got one thing to boot to, and that's the USB drive. Otherwise, it would end up back in the BIOS again with nothing to boot to. So we're going to just do a standard Windows install. We click Next here, Install Now. We're going to say I don't have a product key. That puts us in a trial mode, which is fine. We'll do Windows 10 Pro, although it doesn't matter. I'll just do it anyway. End user license agreement. Now here is where it should see our drive. It should see, oh, I'm sorry, we choose custom install. Oh, no, it didn't take effect. You see, it still sees 2 drives. It should see 1 drive with twice that capacity. So I have missed its step. So let me shut this back off. Let's go back into the BIOS again. Let's make sure it's saved correctly. So I'll just hold the power button in until it shuts off. And I'm going to unplug the USB drive and turn it back on. Again, when it has nothing to boot to, it'll just go right back in the BIOS, so you don't have to keep smashing on that delete key. And then we're going to just double check to make sure our settings stuck. Sometimes they don't stick right. Okay. I like when it does what it's supposed to. So back under BIOS is CSM off. CSM support is disabled. Very good. Keep going to the right. SATA and RST config. We'll go down here. Let's make sure that Intel RST is enabled. Yes. That's good. RST controlled, RST controlled. That should have worked. What am I missing? Am I missing a step? I mean, I already changed 4 things. Do I have to change 5 things? Gigabyte? Come on now. Work with me. Yeah, it shouldn't matter. That should have worked. I wonder why it didn't work. Here I am making a video showing you how to do it. The thing I want you to take from this, obviously, is it's complicated, right? Even when I'm showing you how to do it, and I thought I had all my ducks in a row, still not working correctly. So we have CSM disabled, Intel RST is enabled on SATA mode. We don't need to use the legacy OROM. You can, if you want to have the old-fashioned screen come up before UEFI to recognize the RAID. We shouldn't need to have that enabled, but maybe we do. There's a lot of things I shouldn't have to do in this BIOS, but then I would think CSM would have to be on. I don't know. Let's just try it and see what happens. Save and exit, save and exit. Okay, now it should come up and we should see like an old-fashioned BIOS screen detecting the RAID. Oh, I think I know what I did wrong. I think I know what I did. Okay, there is a step here. Sorry, let me put it back to how it was. Screwed up. I made a boo-boo. Let's go back down here and let's turn that off. I know what I did. There's a fifth step I forgot. So we're gonna go back, that left is disabled, probably because CSM's disabled. So that's fine, it didn't even change, save that setting. So now we need to configure the RAID array. That's what I didn't do. What I did is all I've done at this point is told the BIOS I want to use these two drives in here as a RAID array. And it says, fine, you can. So there's a fifth step now, and that's to configure how I want the RAID configured, which I haven't done yet. You have to do that in the BIOS. So we're going to hit escape, and we're going to go to where is it? Intel Rapid Storage Technology. Create RAID volume. And I'm going to select which disks. I mean, I could have 5 or 6 disks in here, and I only want 2 for the RAID. I only have 2 disks in here. I want them both for the RAID. So I'm going to hit enter. And you'll see my options are blank or X. Now you think X would mean you want to delete it. No, X means you want to choose it. You think it'd be a check mark. Again, the brilliance of the Gigabyte engineers is profoundly illogical. Engineers should be very logical people. Anyway, so we hit the X, and you'll see a little X. Just think of that as a check mark, which is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a check mark. And this blank one, this should be an X, meaning you want to remove the check mark. But, you know, maybe it's the engineer's first day. I don't know. So we're going to select both of those. You see they both have a check next to them, or an X next to them. And then we're going to, now that we've selected we want to use these 2 drives, we're going to go right down here and create the volume. And it says, what kind of volume? We want volume 1 RAID 0, which is a striped array, totaling 1.8 terabytes, normal. Hit enter. That's all good. And that's it. We're done. We can either delete that or not. That's it. That's your option. Delete or leave it alone. So you'll see that it's given a name of volume 1. Who cares what the name is? RAID level is RAID 0. Striping means just that. You know, it stripes the data. So one half of the data goes on one drive, one half of the data goes on another drive. If you picture that in your head, it looks like, if you can imagine stripes, I guess. If you're buying into that, that's how they think of it anyway. That's engineers. That's how engineers think. So let's go to save and exit now that we've got that configured. That was, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 clicks of the mouse total to get this enabled. Is it worth it? That's the question. Is it worth it? We're going to see double the read speeds and double the write speeds. Remember what I said about traffic in lanes and that you can't go any faster than the car in front of you. Remember that. Let me go ahead and shut this back off. I restarted it without thinking. So let me shut it off. Let me plug the Windows 10 1809 install right back in here. And we'll turn it back on. It should boot to Windows install this time. When it comes up for selecting the drive, we should see 1 2 terabyte drive, or thereabouts, in the ballpark of 2 terabytes. Okay, are you confused yet? Don't worry, I'm going to make this real simple. Stick with me on this. Stick with me, because once you realize what the end result is, you're going to go, wow, that's probably one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. All right, so here we go. We're back in the Windows setup. We're going to go back through the same options. We click next. We hit install now. going to ask for a product key. We're going to tell it we don't have one just because we can. It wants to know what version. We're going to say Windows 10 Pro. Everything's exactly the same. End user license agreement. We click OK. We click Next. We want to do a custom. Always do a custom install. And look, now we don't see 2 drives anymore. Now we just see the 1 drive 0 with 18,500 gigabytes. So 1,000 megabytes is a gigabyte. 1,000 gigabytes is a terabyte. Again, we go back to megabits, megabytes. It's all math. It's all math. Anyway, that gets us right around 2 terabytes. There's a whole explanation for that I won't get into for right now, but that is correct. And yeah, we'll let it go ahead and partition and format and install that. Now, while that's happening, let you and I have a talk. What's the end result going to be? I'm going to do like the cooking shows, you know, when they put the food in the oven and it's supposed to be in there for an hour and then they take it back out in 2 seconds because they had another one already ready. I've already got all their measurements already ready. Already ready? Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. So here's our RAID performance right here. As you can see, we're looking at 3,500 on the read speed and 3,400. If we look at these 2 top numbers, right? 3540.2 and 3405.4. I thought you said 7,000. We can't get to 7,000. Well, why not? Well, hold on. What if you just had one of those drives? Let's say we turned off RAID 0 and we just used them stock without RAID. What would our numbers be? Here's what our numbers would be. Believe it or not, our read speed over here, this is just a single NVMe Samsung 970 drive, just one. Forget the RAID 0. This is how it performs, 3554 on the reads and 2467 on the writes. Look at all the other numbers are bigger. Well, almost all the other numbers are bigger, I think, except for one. So the single drive outperforms RAID 0. How can that be? How can it be? I mean, it costs a lot of money to buy a Samsung 970 EVO. It's the fastest NVMe solid state drive you can buy. At 1 terabyte is about $300. So to double the money at $600, you should get double the speed, right? I should see 7,000 on the reads and 7,000 on the write. No, or 5,000 on the writes. Nope. All you're going to see is an increase in your write speed by 1/3. That's it. And if either drive dies, you lose everything. It's all gone. It's all wiped out. That's how RAID 0 works. It's risky. That's why it's important you make backups if you're going to use RAID 0. But where's your performance benefit? Well, that is all explained in the math. And this explains why overclocking back in the 90s made sense, but overclocking today doesn't make any sense. If you have a computer since 2015 or newer, then you've got DMI 3.0. And DMI, briefly, it's the direct media interface. It's what connects everything that you're connecting to your computer, to your motherboard, to your CPU. And on the screen, it explains that with an Intel-based, a consumer-based Intel or Ryzen chip, with DMI 3.0, you're maxed out at about 3552 megabytes a second. I mean, that's pretty much as fast as you can go. That's it. Just like when I talked about SATA, and I said 560 megabytes is about as fast as you can go. It saturates it. We're back on the freeway. That's as fast as anybody can go on the freeway. There's nothing you can do other than change the freeway. So, can you change the freeway? Yes, you can. That's when you get into X299 or Threadripper. That's where you open up more channels to the CPU. But basically, the difference between X99 and X299 is just this. So if you're not going to run RAID 0 in X299, there's really no benefit to you having it, as far as I'm concerned. So you can overclock your chip all day. You can hit 5 gigahertz all day. You're not going to increase your DMI. Your DMI is what it is. It's already being saturated stock. And so by overclocking it, you're not going to see any better performance. It's just silliness. Now, when we talk about DMI, we talk about something called GTS. You're going to see that a lot if you research this. And that's explained, where is it? Right here. So if you want to look at gigatransfers per second, this explains that. But it boils down to ultimately, how many megabytes per second are we looking at? We're looking at about 3552 saturated out. If it's fully maxed out, you know, the sink only holds so much water. If you want to hold more water, you need a bigger sink. It doesn't really do you much good to increase how much water pressure is coming out of your faucet. It's just gonna, I guess, fill your sink up faster. But the bottom line here is that these terms, while very technical, ultimately mean these are your bottlenecks, these are your limits. We're already hitting the limits with one drive. So it doesn't make sense to add a second drive or a third drive in a RAID configuration on a consumer-based Intel chip. Now let's look at pricing. You say, well, what if I did this? What if I said, okay, hold on. What's our price comparison? If you were to get two Samsung 860s, which are not NVMe, they're SATA, they're $162.99 as I'm filming this today. So if we did two of those 1 terabyte SATA 3 and put them in RAID 0, we could get, let's just say we get double the speed. So if the speed on the drive on your left there, the 860 EVO, saturates SATA at let's say 560 megabytes a second, and we double that, we'd be, I'm going to be generous, let's say we're at 1200 megabytes a second at a cost of $162.99. Let's call it 163 plus 163 is $325, $326. Or, now granted, that's going to get you 2 terabytes of storage, right? 2 terabytes at 1200 megabytes, maximum read speed. It's not going to be that much, but, or you could buy one Samsung 970 EVO 1 terabyte drive for $278 and get these speeds right here. So you would triple the speed of a RAID 0 configuration of an 860 EVO on the left, but you'd need at least 2 of those. You would have, again, an extra terabyte of storage, but it would be running at 1/3 the speed for more than the price of a single drive. So it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. There's no reason anybody should logically want to run either a RAID 0 with SATA or RAID 0 in NVMe. It's completely stupid. If you want to do that, that's where you look into Threadripper or X99, well, actually X299. You'd need not X99, you need X299. So let me get rid of that. Let me put my ugly face back on the screen. Here we go. Are you getting that? Do you understand what I'm telling you? Are you understanding the words that are coming out of my mouth? There's a lot of companies that sell custom hardware for cooling and things for overclocking, and they want you to buy it. They want you to continue to keep them in business. But why would you? I mean, if you've got a computer that doesn't have DMI 3.0, if it's built before 2015, yes, you could see some improvement. For what it's going to cost you to get that improvement, you could just put that money towards more modern CPU motherboard and not have to overclock it at all. When we're just studying frequency, when we're looking at how fast the processor is, it is irrelevant. It is absolutely irrelevant. When you look at, you know, a Ferrari on the freeway, do you ever see a Ferrari doing 200 miles on a freeway during rush hour? It ain't gonna happen. You can't go faster than the car in front of you. I don't care how fast the car can go, in theory. How much of it are you actually using? And that's what this amounts to. So don't waste your money. The people at Gigabyte who designed this, look, I can understand that they didn't know SSD prices were going to drop that fast, and maybe they thought this made sense. They didn't know that the NVMe technology was going to saturate DMI 3.0 on a single drive. They didn't know that. I mean, they probably could have guessed it, but using RAID 0 on an Intel consumer-based chip like a X370, X270, X170, or Z170, Z270, 370, it's pointless. It's absolutely pointless because those all have DMI 3.0. They all have DMI 3.0. In order for this to work, we're going to need a DMI 4.0, or you're going to need to move up to Threadripper, or you're going to need to move up to X299. It's a specialty. When I tell you those chips are specialty chips, this is what I'm talking about. On Threadripper with 3 Samsung 970 EVOs, or are they 960s? I've got 3 500 gigabyte M.2 drives and a RAID 0 on the Threadripper. And it achieves, I think it achieves around 5,000 megabytes per second on the reads. So it's not triple. You get sort of this point of diminishing returns on this. Let me just check and see if I have that screenshot of the Threadripper performance tests. Let's see, Threadripper. I don't see it. But the bottom line is you need a very expensive CPU and motherboard to take advantage of that. So the other thing to keep in mind is with this new SSD technology called QLC. If you see a QLC drive, you'll see it's very aggressively priced. You can basically get the same size NVMe drive, same capacity, for about the same price if it uses QLC. QLC is a lot slower than what we're using like in the Samsung 970, which is TLC. So if we look at, forget what all these terms mean, just understand that QLC is a cheap version of NVMe that runs at about 1/3 of NVMe speeds, but almost twice as fast as regular SATA for the same price as regular SATA. So why wouldn't you just go QLC if you wanted to save money? And well, you're not going to see the big boost of 3,000, 3,500 reads, megabytes per second in your read sequential reads. You'll see maybe 1,200 or 1,000. You'll see 1,000 megabytes per second, which is a lot faster than 560 for the same price. Would you rather have 560? Would you rather have $560 or would you rather have $1,000? You say, well, I'd rather have the 3,600 or the 3,500. Well, yeah, but that costs 3 times more. So if you can break the price into 1/3 and get 1/3 of the performance, which is still faster than SATA at its full throttled speed, why wouldn't you? So I'll put links to the SSD tests that I did showing you the performance for the price. Most of them all have the same warranty. You generate 3-year warranties on all these SSDs. SSD life is far greater than a hard drive. If you're worried about reliability, SSDs are far more reliable than hard drives. It'll take about 70 years to kill off an SSD with normal use. When we talk about, just if everything works and it never breaks, the cells will stop working after a certain amount of writes. But it'll take you a long time to get there. In fact, the drive will either be too slow or too small long before it fails. You still want backups because other things happen. You can still get ransomware, you can still get corruptions, you can still get a bad SSD. An SSD can fail. I have never seen one fail. It's been 5 or 6 years now and I've never seen one fail. I've heard stories of ones that fail, but I've never experienced one, nor has any of my customers experienced an SSD failure. But you still have to back up. Always back up. So watch the links in the video below for more information on this. And if anybody has any questions regarding the RAID configuration, performance, value, warranty, NVMe versus SATA, M.2 versus SATA, M.2 is an interface, SATA is an NVMe or the protocol. But if you have questions about that, let's go ahead and ask them now, and then we're going to wrap this up. So let's see what we got going on in the chat. In fact, while I'm waiting, let me just check how's my build. Okay, let's click yes. Click yes. Skip. Skip. No. Okay, any questions? Any questions? If there's no questions, we are going to wrap up this live stream. Can you elaborate on 2 970 EVOs on RAID 0, 4K rendering speeds on 32-core Ryzen? No, I cannot. When you're talking Threadripper, then you will see a performance increase, but how much of an increase depends on the version and of the software that you're using. In other words, Adobe Premiere renders differently than Cyberlink PowerDirector, which renders differently from Sony Vegas. So you would have to go to the forums of the specific software manufacturer to determine if that would be worth your while. What I found with PowerDirector is hard drive speed is practically irrelevant when it comes to rendering. It's all on the graphics card. With Adobe Premiere, I don't know. Optane is a poor person's SSD. It's just a cache. It only runs at PCIe times 2, which is half the speed of PCIe times 4, which is what these SSDs, these Samsung 970s are just out of the box twice as fast as Optane. Optane's only about 32 gigs, and it's just a cache. It's a complete waste of money as far as I'm concerned. Now, Optane may one day become something special, but if you go back and if you want to teach yourself about marketing, if you want to go back to Google and type in new Intel Optane coming soon and read what they said about it, you would have thought it was the second coming of Christ. It didn't, it's nowhere near anything the marketing company said it was going to be. And then when you keep following, if you follow that track, because the internet saves all this stuff for you to go back and put it all together, then the marketing companies backed off and said, well, that's what its potential is. Okay, well, that's not what it is. It hasn't reached its potential. So I didn't even want to talk about Optane. It's just a complete waste of a discussion. Buy an SSD. Even a SATA SSD will far outperform Intel Optane with a mechanical hard drive. It's just a very poor person, and I mean poor not financially, I mean poor in your brain. I don't know what's going on in your head to waste your money on something like that when for $25 you can buy a 120 gig SSD. It's so inexpensive now. Optane's obsolete. It was obsolete before it came out. If it lives up to its potential, and let's say they get it to PCIe times 4, and let's say they give us a lot more storage and it replaces an SSD, it'll be worth talking about. For now, it's all marketing hype that in reality is a complete waste of money that I can't imagine anybody having any legitimate excuse to use. Doesn't make sense. SSDs are far too cheap. Now, if SSDs quadrupled in price, Optane would be a good idea, because you'd say, okay, I can't afford an SSD, I'll do Optane with a mechanical drive instead. Pairing an Optane with an SSD is a complete waste of money, and pairing it with a hard drive, again, is a complete waste of money, because you could just buy an SSD and be done with it and have better performance all the way around and a lot more of it. Instead of 32 gigs, you get 120 gigs. And instead of paying 50 or 60 bucks, it's 25 bucks for a 120 gig solid state drive these days. I want to remind you, speaking of that, A-Data drives are on sale. The 1 terabyte, it's actually advertised as a 960 gigabyte solid state drive, 2.5-inch solid state drive. They're on sale right up until through Halloween, so you got a few more days left for $117.99 at Newegg and at Amazon, and a link to that is in the video notes. Great drives, standard warranty. Obviously, they're going to perform at the limits of SATA as far as sequential read speeds go. $117.99 for 1 terabyte solid state storage. Why do we even want to talk about Optane? Doesn't make sense. Do you need 16 gigs of RAM for video editing, or is 8 gigs fine? Again, it depends on the software, it depends on the size of the file you're editing, how many edits, transitions, special effects, all that eats memory. Generally speaking, anything will work with 8 gigs of RAM, it'll just work a lot slower. If you add 16 gigs, it'll just work a little faster. You go to 32 gigs, if it sees it, utilizes it, it'll work faster. More RAM equals more speed to a point of diminishing returns, depending on the version of the software and how it's coded and how it's designed as to whether or not it utilizes more of the RAM, or if it utilizes more of the CPU, or if it counts more on storage, or if it counts more on video cards. In general, when video editing, you want the best of everything. You want the fastest CPU with the most amount of RAM with the biggest, fastest storage. Bottom line, you get the most you can afford. You can do video editing with less as long as your time is worth nothing. You want to spend 4 hours rendering a 10-minute video? Be my guest. Harry, I uploaded that video, but the quality is garbage. What video are you talking about, Harry? Let's see if I can click over and take a look at. No, it says video unavailable, Harry. Don't know what that is. Okay, any final questions? Otherwise, like I said, I will wrap it up. I really want to address whatever you guys have on your mind right now, specifically as it pertains to the subject of the video. Stephen Bernstein says, I sure wish I had seen this before. I spent hours setting up NVMe RAID 0 on that board and discovered there was no speed benefit. There's a slight speed benefit. Your write speeds are a third faster. They're 33% faster, but it doesn't seem to be worth the risk. And Steve, I recognize you. You are and should have been a moderator, so you are now. Thank you. Let's see what else. I'm trying to go through this as quick as I can. Am I going to install RGB in your Pumpkin? Of course. What's the final configuration of the drives on that machine? This machine will have 2 Samsung 970s and an 860 Evo, all 1 terabyte in size. And then it's got 2 3 terabyte Western Digital Greens mechanical drives. That'll be the complete configuration, all running independent, no RAID. Okay. Is Z97 a dead format? Z97 was a dead format when Z170 came out in 2015. Do you still recommend Malwarebytes? Yes, I do. What has that got to do with RAID? Carrie, you should do a build with an ROG board. Kevin, I do builds that customers order. If you'd like to see me build anything in specific like that, then you order it from me. I don't have sponsorships. I don't make much money from YouTube. I can't go out and buy these parts. No one's giving me this parts. If you want to see something on this channel, you can reach out to me to pay me to build it for you. And you would provide me with the parts. I don't make any money from parts. I don't sell parts, so it doesn't cost you anything. There's no shortage of videos I want to get made. Right now, there's around 16 videos in production that are happening simultaneously. And there's another 400 or 500 I want to do after that. So I don't have a shortage of ideas for videos. What I have a shortage of are people willing to pay money to see what they want to see. In other words, if you want to see an ROG board, then send me an ROG board. I mean, unless we start charging people for subscriptions and we can use that money to buy parts based on a vote of what people want to see. But for right now, YouTube pays me about 7 1/1000ths of a penny for each subscriber every 30 days. Would you work for 7 1/1000ths of a penny every 30 days? Have you tried that silicon power SSD you showed on one of your live streams? No, it's still brand new in a box. Well, in the clamshell package. I'm sure it'll be fine though. It was cheap. It's a 500 gig silicon power 2.5 inch solid state drive. And I've had really good luck with the silicon power USB flash drives. And so this company is very good in dealing with RAM and memory. So I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it's going to saturate this SATA bus like everything else. It's got the same warranty as everything else. I don't expect it to be any different, but I'm sure it'll show up on a video eventually. Could one dodge the DMI bottleneck via PCIe add-in cards? I don't know the answer to that. I know that there have been configurations on Threadripper where 2 PCIe add-in cards that hold 4 SSDs each were added. So that's a total of 8 SSDs for some astronomical performance. But the reason for that is there's just not 8 sockets on the board, right? You know, the board mainly, at the most, will have 3 M.2 sockets. The only way you're going to get to more than 3 M.2 drives is an add-in card. I think that's more an ability of the chip. I think you're going to have to be Threadripper or X299 for that to work. I don't think a PCIe add-in card is going to break this bottleneck on a consumer-based Intel, you know, I keep saying X, a Z370 board. I don't think it's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it's going to happen. Stephen Barber says, silicon power SSDs are very good. That's all I use. Yeah, I'm sure they're fine. Carrie, do you use Windows Defender in Windows 10? Yes, I've been using Windows Defender since Windows 7. And if you combine that with a paid version of Malwarebytes, it's excellent security. It won't protect you from everything, but nothing will. It's very affordable. I saw Newegg had a 10-pack of Malwarebytes for $69.99. 10-pack. So it's one license key that can be installed on 10 PCs for 1 year. So that's $7 per copy, per license. So Malwarebytes is very affordable. For an individual user, RAID fine as backup. No, RAID is not a backup. If somebody were to steal your computer, if your computer were to get a ransomware virus or any other kind of virus, if you accidentally deleted a file, if you, the only time a RAID 1 configuration would serve as a backup is if one drive died. But if you've got more than one drive, then you have more than one drive that can die, doubling your chances for having a drive die. You always need a backup if your data is important to you. Nobody gives a rat's behind about your data. The only person that matters is you. That's the only one who cares. If you don't care enough to back it up, if you think in having a RAID is going to enable you to be lazy, and when your computer gets stolen or it's involved in a fire, a theft, a flood, when you get ransomware, crypto virus, you're going to learn the hard way you didn't have a backup. And I can't even go on with how many different ways people lose their data. I could talk for the next hour over all the possible ways people lose data, but I'm not going to. All I can tell you is everybody who's lost data, they all have one thing in common, and that is they did not expect it to happen. People with backups, they expect it to happen, and so when it happens, it sucks, it's an inconvenience, but they didn't lose anything, or the amount they lost was minimized. So if your data is important, back it up. I don't care if you back up. I really don't care. Your data is not important to me. I don't care about your data. Nobody cares about your data. So if you don't care enough to back it up, that tells me that it's worthless. I don't need to feel guilty because even you don't care enough about it. My NAS drives are set on RAID 5. Yes, network attached storage can give you a lot of storage, massive storage. So what I have a Synology with 2 Seagate 12 terabyte drives in a RAID 1 configuration. And there is nothing on that NAS that I absolutely have to have that I don't already have backed up. If somebody were to break into my house and steal my NAS, if my house were to catch fire, if I were to have a leaking water heater and I left for a vacation over the weekend and found a foot of water in my house, my NAS is gone. It's just gone. The only way that the NAS helps me is having a mass amount of storage local on one drive and then mirroring that drive to one of a similar size. So if one of the drives fails, which is often the most likely reason you'll lose data, I still have all the data on the other drive. But remember, I've just doubled my chances of having a drive failure by having 2. On the other hand, I don't have to back it up in the sense that 12 terabytes takes a long time to back up. If you've got the drive even 3/4, even half full, 6 terabytes going to take a long time. So to have it happening in RAID 1 in real time adds some redundancy, but it's not a backup. Redundancy is not a backup. Redundancy is not a backup. Am I being redundant? Redundancy is not a backup. Real men don't back up, they cry. Yeah, pretty much. And crying doesn't get your data back. So good luck with that. Are you going to notice a big difference in sound with a 4-year-old motherboard and motherboard these days? It depends on the board you buy. The higher end boards have higher end sound chips. Also depends on your ears. It depends on your speakers, and it depends on what you define subjectively as good sound. Nobody can tell you something sounds better. Nobody can tell you something tastes better. No one can tell you something looks better. When I say the word red, you're assuming you and I define red the same way, but you don't know what red looks like to me. You don't know what red looks like to anybody but you. You don't know what something sounds like to anybody else but you. You don't know what anything feels like or tastes like. You don't know what anybody else tastes. You don't know what anybody else feels. You feel it, you taste it, and you put that off on other people. And you're just like, well, if that's the way I taste it, that's the way you taste it. You couldn't be more wrong in your life. We're all individuals, we're all different. We all have different DNA. We have different ancestry. We come from different places. Some of us are more sensitive than others. So you cannot expect to get an answer to that question from anybody in the world. It's an impossible question to answer. That's not to say people won't make an attempt. They'll tell you what they like and they'll do the exact same thing you're doing. Well, this is what I like, so therefore that's what you're gonna like. This is what I see as red, therefore that's what you see as red. And that information most of the time is completely worthless because we very rarely see, hear, touch, feel, or taste anything the same. It's pretty rare. We can get pretty similar, but what we define as good, you know, you could watch somebody eating something like Vegemite and go, oh my God, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever smelled. I don't know how you could get it even near your mouth. And they're like, oh my God, oh, that's the best. Oh. You couldn't be further apart. How do you explain that? If we all taste and see and hear the same, we don't. Oh, I had a letter arrive the other day. Let me read this letter, and then we're going to wrap up today's broadcast. Let me just grab it real quick. I've got it back here in my office. Where is it? Where it is. Okay. Sometimes people write me letters and put it in the old snail mail, which is cool. This comes from Superman G. You'll see him in the chat from time to time. Got this nice letter here. It says, I want to say thank you for all the advice you've providing and the videos you've made, especially the one about making backups. I think if I hadn't watched your video about that, I would have been in a bind. I purchased a Western Digital My Passport 2 terabyte external hard drive a few months ago, and I started using it along with the Acronis program. Both were super easy to set up, and Acronis Backup has a scheduled option as to when it automatically backs up my computer at the designated time and day I've selected, but there's still the option to manually do a backup at any given time. I must admit I've gotten a bit behind because I had my external drive disconnected and my instincts were telling me I needed to go plug it in and do a backup. So with no delay, I reconnected the hard drive and made a backup, and I'm glad to say I did it just in time. When I came home from work the next night, the computer, for some reason, had gone into default mode where everything seemed like it was as if I'd just gotten the computer back from the factory. I don't know what caused the issue, so I started the Acronis restore function, and I allowed it to work while I went to bed. The next morning when I woke up, the computer was off. I had no idea what to expect when I turned it on. Did it work or no? Surprise, the backup worked and saved me tons of time and trouble to get my computer back to the state I had it in. So for those who want to argue about backing up not being necessary or think it's not important, may this story be a testimony that when it comes to safeguarding your data, important data, there's no substitute for backing it up. Thank you again, Carrie, for your spot-on advice and recommendations. And that's from Superman G. And then he sent me this other one. And he says, well, here, I'll just let you read it. All right. Well, thanks for the letter, Superman G. Thanks for sharing your story. I get a bunch of emails like that on a regular basis. People want to share their stories of backup. But remember, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your data. Nobody cares about your data. Do you care about my data? Why do you think I care about yours? If you don't care enough to back up your own stuff, why would you expect any sympathy? For any reason. Oh, it's the new Windows update did it. No, you did it. You're the one without the backup. It was just a matter of time before something got you. If it wasn't going to be the Windows update, it would have been a virus, or it would have been an update to something else, or it would have been you clicking on a bad link in an email, or you'd have done something. It's just a matter of time before the hard drive would have failed, or power would have gone out during a write cycle and corrupted the data. It would have been something. It's just a matter of time. Well, it hasn't happened yet. It will. Keep waiting and keep doing it. Let's see how it works out for you. You know, you could gamble that way too. You could sit there and say, oh, I win every time I throw the dice. Okay, well, let's see how long you can do that. Jen says, say hey to Lyle for me. Lyle, Jen says hello. Lyle, you're not Lyle. Where you at, boy? There he is. There he is. You want to say hello to Jens? Hello, Jens. How's it going? You got any cookies? What? Did I hear cookies? Cookies? Somebody's talking about cookies? Oh, now I got to give him cookies. All right, let's get some cookies. These are the cookies. Patrick, I think, sent these cookies. Here. Come here. You want one? Can I have a paw? Give me the paw. Give me this paw. Oh, look at you guys. Yeah, but that's for your brother. You already had yours. Okay, you're a good boy. All right. Dog said, thank you for the cookies. Oh, Harry Baldwin's got a video there on how to destroy a hard drive. Very cool. I guess you just smash it with a rock. I'm okay with that. I can't listen to the audio right now, but I will definitely check that out. So, yeah, if you guys make your own videos and you want to have perhaps a bigger audience than what you have in your own channel, you want to offer it to me to share on my channel, if the video fits the standards of what we do here, I'd be happy to give you the free promo and share your creation here. Try and find another YouTuber that'll do that. Good luck with that. Everybody's hoarders. They're all, it's mine, I'm not giving it to you. It's mine, mine. I don't do that. It's all us. We're a community. Patrick says you're welcome, Jimmy and Lyle. The name of the backup program is Acronis, A-C-R-O-N-I-S. I've been talking about it since 2003. Well, here on YouTube, at least since 2009. I've been using it a long time. Obviously, it's new versions released each and every year. Sometimes you'll see it on sale, like for 30 bucks at Newegg or Amazon, and it'll have like a $30 rebate. But even for 30 bucks, it's totally worth it. But you can just use Windows built-in backup utility if you really wanted to. You could just slap an external hard drive on and it'll say, what do you want to do with this device? You want to open it to view the files. You say, click, I want to make a backup, and it'll just image the whole system. You just don't have all the bells, whistles, and features and controls and performance of Acronis. Microsoft gives it to you for free in Windows 10, but there's no bells or whistles or features. It's not particularly fast, but it'll get the job done. How was the Canadian Coke? Hey, Winston, the Canadian Coke, this is not one of them. I had one yesterday off camera. And of course, it's great. Thank you for sending it. When are these computers going to ship out? Tomorrow, my sister Linda is coming over. I'm going to have her do the cable management on these. And I have a short video to make on the Australia video. What I've got to do is I've got to pull the video card out of it and make a video just for Rodney that says, okay, Rodney, now that you have your computer, I want you to take the video card and take the panel off of the case and make sure this latch is open, put the video card in, put the 2 screws in, hook the 2 power cables up, and put the panel back on. And that's just going to be for Rodney. Then I have to get my wife's car, because she's got the SUV, the Subaru Forester. I have to put all of Rodney's parts in there because they won't fit in my Mustang. I have to take it to FedEx and let FedEx box it. The box is going to be about yay big. That definitely won't fit in the Mustang. So once I have that, then I can take that over to DHL, and I hope it'll be under $600, $600 or so to ship. FedEx wants $1,200 to ship. Andrew, which is the machine in this one. This is Andrew. This is going to Pennsylvania. I need to talk to Andrew. I think it's good to ship. I'm not sure until I talk to him. This is Rodney, and this is going to John in California. And I still have more configuration. I've got the rest of the M.2s to install. I've got the wiring for the hard drives, power, and then the cable management. And then that should be ready to go to California. And then there's one more Nuka-Cola case, which is mine. And I've got the same motherboard here, combined with an 8086K, so the same chip. I've got some non-RGB RAM I'm going to slap in there that was on sale. It'll be 32 gigs. And for a cooler, I don't know what I'm going to use. I have that Kraken X62 laying around. I might just slap that in there because I think it'll work well, and I've got no plans for it. It's an extra part. And Andrew included, when Andrew sent me his stuff, he sent me an H115 cooler. And he said, you know, if the Kraken works, use the Kraken, and you can keep the H115. So I've got that brand new in a box to use too. I haven't made up my mind. The Kraken is RGB and the Corsair is not, the H115. And the Kraken's already out of the box. So I'm thinking I'll use the Kraken X62. I know it fits well in these cases. And that'll be that build. And then probably come January, hopefully graphics cards will have dropped in price and I'll throw a graphics card. But in the meantime, we'll just use onboard video. Both Andrew and John are gonna add their own video cards when they receive the machines. That's why we're running off onboard video on these. And Rodney, with his 1080 Ti, I don't wanna ship with the graphics card in it. I'm afraid it won't survive that trip. So I will remove the graphics card and put it back in its original box and then make Rodney a video on how to install it when he gets it. And then all three of those machines will be out. Do I like root beer? On occasion. I'm not a big root beer fan. Ben DeCure says, it's been a year since I built my PC and it's still running like new. Thanks for inspiring me to do it, Carrie. Can't wait to build another one, hopefully soon. I contacted the judge. I asked, you know, how are things going? I haven't heard from you. He said, you know, you build these computers too darn well. It's running great. I reached out to the gentleman in Arizona who we built the audio system for. He hasn't had a whole lot of time with it, but he says everything's been running great. When I have time, I like to kind of reach back to some clients. Usually no news is good news, but it's always nice. You know, customers never complain that you're bothering them when you go, hey, it's Carrie. Just wanted to follow up, see how that computer's been running for you. I know it's been a long time since we talked, and I know usually no news is good news, but I'd like to hear it. And yeah, they always say, yeah, it's running great. So it's good news. The one system I shipped to Montana, he started having some weird blue screens and wanted to send it back to me. And I said, you know, why don't you just shut the machine off, remove a RAM module, turn it back on. You know, here's a video on how to run memtest 86. If it passes, take that RAM module out, put the other one back in, run it again. He did that and both memory modules passed. And I said, okay, now run it with both memory modules in, and it passed. So I said, I think it just needed to be reseated. I think the problem's solved. Well, what causes that? Turning the machine on and off, there's something called chip crawl, and the chip could slowly crawl its way out of the socket. And if just one of those pins just is a fraction of a millimeter not making contact, that can be enough to have random blue screens. The RAM's all under warranty. My niece contacted me. She said she was having computer problems. Turned out to be her hard disk drive had failed. But in doing so, I think she damaged one of her DIMM sockets and she thinks she needs a new motherboard. I've reminded her that that board should still be under warranty. I think she's just looking for an excuse to replace it, if I'm honest. I think she just wants something new. I don't know. I've only talked to her in text messaging, so I don't get any, there's no tone, there's no inclination. So I'm just suspecting, I think she just wants it. I think she wants it to be broken so she can replace it with something more powerful. There's a lot of peer pressure, I imagine, in college to have the latest and greatest. I told her I don't agree with it. I think if, in fact, the board is bad, which is very unusual, if the board is bad, it should be under warranty. It shouldn't cost you anything. I think everything was resulted from the bad mechanical hard drive, and the way you went about diagnosing it was harmful to the board potentially. But again, this is based working totally blind on text messages. I have to take everything she's telling me and interpret it, and I don't agree with the way she did her diagnostic. So who knows? I told her if she wants to bring it by and have me look at it, I'd be happy to look at it. Maybe she's 100% correct. I'm very doubtful, but I've been wrong before. The warranties don't cover physical damage, but that doesn't mean you can't try. You know, if you send the board back, you say, look, the board doesn't work. Don't openly admit that you've damaged something. Just tell them I don't know what's wrong with it. And roll the dice, you know, if it's physically damaged. Again, maybe in inserting and removing the RAM modules when diagnosing the bad hard drive, she could have knocked something loose. There may not be physical damage to the board, or maybe she caused non-visible damage to the board, like an electrostatic discharge. In most cases, a good manufacturer will not give you a hard time. They will simply replace the board unless the damage is very obvious. So it's worth trying. When can we all donate $20 to help you with your NZXT? The NZXT is already paid for. It was given, the case was given to me by a local here in Arizona. His name is Robert. The motherboard I paid for with pre-existing donations, along with a Samsung 970 Evo, just like here, 1 terabyte. I really don't, I'm not worried about needing a graphics card at this point. I've been, like right now I am streaming on twitch.tv. Right now there are reruns happening at twitch.tv/Car-ey-Holzman. And so yesterday I was working with that, if you remember, I did that Encase M1, and I took the motherboard out of the train computer, mini ITX board, but it's a Z97 with an Intel Core i3 with 8 gigs of RAM. And the videos go like, it is the most frustrating. It doesn't have enough power just to stream freaking video. I can't believe it. So I don't know if it's a video card, you know, the built-in video card on that chip, if that's weak to do that, or is it the fact that it's only got 8 gigs of RAM instead of 16? It just wasn't working. So what I did is I said, you know, Thready's just sitting around doing nothing. So I hooked up Thready, put the software on it, and Thready right now as we speak is live streaming pre-recorded content over to twitch.tv/Car-ey-Holzman. It's interesting because the Thready's fans, even though they're a lot quieter, here's what it sounds like in my office. I hear, So what it's doing is it's hitting a temperature, the fans are cranking up, bringing the temperature back down, and the fans slow down, and then the temperatures go back up, and the fans come back on. It drives me crazy. So I still haven't solved the noise problem with Thready. I may be able to just tweak the BIOS to let the fans run a little faster all the time. It's really annoying the heck out of me. But in the meantime, it is streaming live right now on twitch.tv/Car-ey-Holzman. I'll have it do it through tomorrow. And, you know, I got to build up a Twitch audience. If I'm ever going to broadcast on Twitch, I have to just start building that audience. And that audience hasn't seen any of this content. Maybe some of the content you've never seen either. So check it out. It's free, twitch.tv/Car-ey-Holzman. Do you think GPU prices will go down? It is my guess, given being in this industry as long as I have and seeing the wheel going around in circles, I think GPU prices are going to not go far down between now and Christmas. I think they're NVIDIA, AMD, and everybody's trying to squeeze out every last bit of money they can get for the holiday season. And then come January 2nd, I think the prices on these drives will be at least $100 cheaper. It'll be impossible for me to say exactly, but I think you're going to see cheaper prices on the GTX series cards, and even on the RTX series cards. I think they're all going to be reduced. And I mean, the bottom's going to drop out. So when I can pick up a 1080 Ti for under $500 brand new, I think it'll be after January 1st. I could be wrong, but let's save this video. Let's save this part. We'll revisit it and see what that happens. And then based on that, you can guess, or you can then make a decision as to whether or not you want to listen to my predictions in the future. Acronis Halloween offering, $39.99. Where at? From Acronis.com or from Amazon or from Newegg? Who's? Again, it's often cheaper to buy Acronis from anybody but Acronis, honestly. Do you need all the cores that come from an i9? Probably not. In fact, what I was thinking of doing, you can't find an i9, first of all, not in the USA. They're just not out there. But I can get a micro ATX i9, I'm sorry, a micro ATX motherboard from Gigabyte for about $135, a Z390 chipset motherboard. And then an i9 9900K is, gosh, I want to say it's around, how much is it right now? I mean, assuming it was in stock, which it isn't. But let's just take a quick look at what Newegg is selling it for. I can't remember the price. i9 9900K. $580. $580. And I've got RAM. And I was thinking I could build that out into Xenos. Remember, the Xenos computer has to be the best of the best. So it's halfway built now with an X99, which has never even been turned on. Those parts are going to be 2 years old. So I don't know what I'm going to do with those. I'll figure something out. If anybody wants to buy an X99, you let me know. I'll hook you up. All right. Virgin Kalaustian has contributed $1. Thank you. Kalaustian. I don't know how to say your name. Virgin Kalaustian. Maybe. Matthew says, the weird thing is Carrie is wearing that same shirt on Twitch right now. Multiple universes. Can you do a video about setting up a home network sometime? That's in the list of things to do. It's a very complicated video to make because it requires me to set up 2 networks. I have to have my consistent network going for me to make the video on how to set up a network. I can't set up a network on an already set up network, so I have to create a second network within that network. Not very easy to do. But setting up a network these days is pretty much just plugging cables into a router, and then you just turn on what you want to share. It's not like 10 years ago. It's so easy now. But it wouldn't hurt for me to do it. I'm sure there are plenty of other YouTube videos that have already covered that topic in depth, but I wouldn't mind doing one eventually. What was the parts list for the Xenos? I can't remember either. It was what did we put in there? Hold on, let me check. It's been almost 2 years, so I don't even remember what I bought. And some of the parts are still new in a box. Let's see. I'm using the graphics card in the streaming machine that you're watching right now, or that's broadcasting to you right now. Let's see. Oh, it's an EVGA Micro ATX X99 motherboard. What chip did I put in? I don't even have the box anymore for the chip because it's installed in the motherboard. I don't know. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. What is this? That's graphics card receipt. Wait a minute. I might have the packing list. That's for a whole different system. Don't know why it's in this box. Let's see. What do we got? Samsung. It's got a Samsung 850 EVO, 2.5-inch solid state drive. Intel Core i7 6900K. Okay. So it was EVGA's Micro ATX X99 board with the Intel Core i7 6900K, 4 sticks of G-Skill, 8 gigs apiece. That's 8/16 twin. That's 32 gigs of RAM. 512 gig Samsung 2.5-inch solid state drive, 750 watt RM750X Corsair power supply. So, yeah. To make donations, the link is in the video notes below this video, but you can go to www.tech-vets.com. You don't need a www, just tech-vets.com. You'll see a donate button in the upper right side of the page. All contributions go to the channel. They go towards equipment and everything needed to make more videos, higher production quality videos, more cameras, more memory cards, better microphones, more rechargeable batteries, more lenses. It goes on and on. It's like a never-ending battle. So yes, anybody who sends through the donate button at tech-vets.com, you will receive a response from me as long as you included an email address in your PayPal payment. Some people, I think I've had about 3 or 4 people so far, there's no email address associated with their PayPal account, with the payment they made. I have no way to say thank you to them. I don't know. Other people, when I reply to them, my email gets blocked. I don't know why. So the message comes back to me as undeliverable. So I have no way to say thank you to them. But most of the time, for 99% of the people that contribute, no matter how much or how little, I say thank you. And you should get that email from me usually within 24 hours. And any donations of $20 or more, I'll send you a case badge which says inspired by Kerry Holzman. It's aluminum engraved. They ship anywhere in the world. Just a $20 minimum donation is all I ask. And I have lots of those case badges. We're not running out anytime soon. Lots and lots of them. With all the PCs you have now, you probably don't even need Xenos anymore. It's not a question of need, it's a question of want. That's always been the case with Xenos. Xenos is not a need type of a computer. Nobody needs a Ferrari, nobody needs a Lamborghini. Nobody needs a Xenos. It's what you want. Captain Crunch has contributed $1. Thank you, Captain Crunch. Let's see. Where are the lists for all the Nuka-Cola builds? If you look in the video library, you'll see the Nuka-Cola builds listed. Build 1 of 4, build 2 of 4, build 3 of 4. In the video description, in the notes that are below the video, are the lists for all the parts for that specific video. You guys, I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort putting those gosh darn video notes together, and it's so frustrating you guys don't know they exist or won't look at them. What a complete waste of my time. So please, please don't make it be a waste of my time. The information was put there for you. That's why I did it. I didn't do it for me. So when you find the topic of the video, anything discussed in that video should be in the description of that video. If you come across a video where I talk about something where there is no link in the video note, let me know and I'll correct it. You can just leave a comment under the video that says, oh, you mentioned this and you didn't link to it. I forget all the time. If you bring it up, I'll put it in there for you. It's what happens when you're making videos every day. It's hard enough to create new content, let alone going back to older, previously made content to remember what link I was supposed to put in. So you'll have to remind me. What do the case badges look like? I'll show you. I should have one up here up front. Let's see. This is the case badge. It's a matte black, so it won't easily scratch. It's made of aluminum, so it's pretty thick, so it won't easily bend. On the back side, there's some double-sided sticky tape. Just remove, peel and stick right there. It's funny because the tiniest little things show up on the camera. There was a little speck of dust right over there. I wanted to show you it wasn't a scratch. It's perfectly smooth. The company I have making these for me just does an awesome job. Yeah, that's what my signature looks like, that mess. It does kind of look like a Coca-Cola symbol, doesn't it? Wonder if there's something to that. You can put that right on your case. Yeah, so what I'm requesting is a $20 donation. The reason is these cost me about $2 a piece to have made. And then the stamps, like to ship international, those stamps are around $2 a piece, somewhere in there. To ship domestically, that's about, it's just under $1, I want to say. So then it takes time to stuff the envelopes and get the letters printed. Every letter is got your name on it. It's not like a generic letter. Your name is actually on the letter. And then those I personally hand stuff them and mail them myself. It's not something that's off-putting. I'm not outsourcing that to anybody else. They're all being handled by me personally. So I only have time to do that about once a week. And there's been a little delay in getting them out. Some people have had to wait 2 weeks, but I'm doing my best to keep up with it and manage my time. And of course, if it's been more than, let's say, 3 weeks since you've donated $20 or more and you did not get a case badge, please let me know. Please let me know you didn't get it. Let me verify one went out. Sometimes in the madness that goes on here, I lose track. It happens. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And I want you to know that it matters to me. I want you to make sure you get that. One person said they didn't get theirs. It had been a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, it somehow slipped through the cracks. Here's 2. I sent you 2. So just try to make it right, you know. But at least that leaves a little bit left over to go to the channel, because what I was doing before, it was almost a break even. And I was just working and working and working and just breaking even. It just didn't make any sense anymore. So that's why I stopped selling them for a long time until I could figure out what a fair price would be that would at least, you know, leave some meat on the bone for the channel, which was really what it was intended for. So yeah. If I want to do a build from you on here, how much do I donate? You'll have to reach out to me. Send me a message and we'll go with the details. Basically, you're just paying for the shipping of what it's going to cost to ship the computer to you, and you just give that to me up front. And that way I know you're not wasting my time. It's generally around $125, donated through TechVets. I ask that you give me your phone number and the best time to call, because we're going to need to do about a 90-minute phone consultation to determine which parts are going to be ideal for you. And then create that parts list and send it to you so you can decide where you want to order your parts from. Have the parts shipped directly to me. I'll let you know when I get them and when I plan on filming your build live. It's great when the owner of the computer can join me in chat. So if I have any questions to ask, I can do it while I'm live, as we did with Andrew here. And yeah, that's generally the way it works. James Liebig says, my whole family's watching you. I told them how great you are. Hi, Liebig family. I can verify that on the case badges as it was me, and thank you for making it right, even though it was the mail's problem. Oh, yeah, well, that was a different problem, yeah. Milge says, links to lazy Susan screwdriver, but not on the parts list there. Where is there? There's over 600 videos on my channel. About 8 of those are Nuka-Cola builds. I have no idea what you're talking about. Try to avoid using words like there and it, because I have no idea what you're referencing. If you really want to be helpful, I need a link to the video, or at least I need to know the title of the video. So if you're not a moderator, you can't post links, although you are a moderator. If something is a part 2, for example, usually it doesn't carry over the links because that would have been in part 1 that you were supposed to watch before you started part 2. But working with the public is a very interesting challenge because people don't necessarily behave the way you think they will. And if need be, I can copy and paste if that's what I have to do. But if part lists are missing from part 1 of any of the Nuka-Cola builds, I would be surprised. They should all be there, but it's possible. Hey Carrie, should I turn on Acronis True Image active protection or not? That's up to you. I don't use Acronis that way, but you know, experiment with it and decide what you like. Casey says, I watched your video on the Chevy, fixing the Chevy Blazer. It's funny because I just got one. I thought it was funny to see a computer guy working on a truck. First and foremost, I went to school to become an ASE certified mechanic at the GM training facility at my local college. I did computers as a hobby. So you're really not seeing a computer guy working on a truck. You're seeing a mechanic working on computers. But I've worked on computers for 27 years professionally, and I've only worked on cars as a hobby. I never had a job paid to fix cars. So what was going to be my career turned into my hobby, and what was my hobby turned into my career. And I didn't learn fixing cars because I wanted to. I learned fixing cars because if I didn't fix the car that I had to take the bus. Those were my only 2 choices. So I learned how to fix the car. All right, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for right now. Thank you all for joining me today. I really am glad I got this particular video done because it was very important to me to clarify this and make sure you're all aware of the complicated nature of setting up a RAID 0 array. You should also know that anytime the BIOS would be updated, all that information would be wiped out and reset back to default, which means you'd have to go back. You wouldn't have to set up, you wouldn't have to create the array. The array is still created, but it won't boot to it until you have to turn CSM back off, turn Intel RST back on, and Intel, the 2 ports, what was it, port 1 and 17 or whatever it was, to be controlled by Intel RST. Every time you update the BIOS, you will have to do that, or your system will have an unmountable boot volume. It won't be able to even recognize. It'll see 2 individual drives that are both not bootable. Remember, when you RAID them together, they become like Siamese twins. They become attached to each other, and they won't function without the other one. So anytime you update the BIOS resets to all the default values, and the system will be bootable. So you got to go back in the BIOS, you got to make those 4 changes, and the system will boot again. So it's very important you understand all the pain in the butt you're going to endure, and then understand the expense, of course, of the 2 drives. And then on top of that, understand the risk if one drive fails. And then on top of that, understand that you're only going to see a 1/3 or a 33% increase in your sequential write speeds only. You won't see any other performance difference, which makes it completely stupid to do that on an X3, I keep saying X, on a Z370 based, on a 170, 270, 370. Doesn't make any sense. You got to go to Threadripper or you got to go X299 if that's what you want to do. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this all educational, and thanks for all the questions and participation. And looks like we were pretty well troll-free today, which is good. Got 529 people watching, so thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you all again tomorrow, maybe in costume. It's going to be Halloween week, so maybe time for some Rick and Morty to come out and play. Bob Ross. We'll see. Until then, I'll see y'all very, very soon. Bye for now.